Hello and welcome to another Retro Crazy. The Sinclair ZX Spectrum. This was the second computer I ever owned. Previously on the channel I featured the ZX81, one of which was my very first computer. And again, that was made by Sinclair Research. This was launched in 1982, was manufactured again by Timex, but unlike the ZX81, this had colour and sound. Woo! I mean, it's scary when you consider that this little thing is, you know, coming up to 40 years old, and it's just an amazing piece of kit. I first saw the ZX Spectrum running a lunar jetpack at a friend's house, and that sold me, considering I was running a ZX81, and seeing colour and hearing sound on screen was just, for a young child, mind-blowing when it's something that you'd never seen before. I was fairly lucky. My father was a school teacher, and one of the things you could do through the school at the time was actually be able to get one of these for yourself. That's how he got my ZX81, and that's how he got the ZX Spectrum. Now, if you consider that, you know, this was, 48K was £175 at launch, way back in 82. 16K one was also available at 125. That's best part of £500 in today's money. So while it was an affordable home computer, it still was not cheap. So my ZX Spectrum has not been powered on for in excess of 35 years. I am not really looking to power it on without doing the usual, replacing the caps, doing some preventative work inside and giving it a good clean. However, this is not my ZX Spectrum. My one's in here. This is a second one I have, and again, I'll do them both simultaneously, so I'll do them side by side. So let me pop this one open, and we'll have a look at the two of them. So let's treat this like a mini unboxing. The lid has seen better days, but it did have Sinclair in it. So shame about that, but I still have it. I've got the original power supply, which I'll need to look at. Again, it's been leaning against something at part of its life, and it's coming off, but it's going to need a good clean to get all this off, and a plug. The Spectrum itself, of which, yeah, time has not been kind. It's still not bad. It's going to need a clean. It's going to need a new fascia. I can't remember what I did there. So we'll pop this to the side. And then we've got our introduction. A general book from Griffin Software about stuff they do. More for Griffin Software. Well, the basic programming manual, which, as you can see, I didn't spend a lot of time reading because it's in such nice condition. The Horizons Software Starter Pack, which, yeah, I did not rewind it back. I've obviously had the plug in here at some point, and then over here because I've damaged the bottom. Your tape leads, again, that's polystyrene that's stuck to it, and then the rest of the power supply. So we'll lift this out as well. So this is my original Spectrum 48K, and this is the other one that I have. I have plans, so while I'm going to do both side by side, this particular one will feature more in part 2. This is my own one, and I want to get this back to, good condition, usable. Now you can see this is actually quite nice, quite tidy. Unfortunately, the print on a lot of the keys has started to fade, whereas on my one, it's maybe not white, but it's much clearer and still there. So let's start off by popping these open and seeing what's inside. Oh dear. I hope you can see in there, this cable has gone completely, and it looks like this one is away across as well. Oh yeah, they're broken. You should see in there and there are parts of the membrane, and the rest of it's just broken off. So we need to see if we can get these out. Luckily that came out intact, no broken pieces inside. I did manage to get it out. That one, it's got a little crack here, but it's fine. Unfortunately, that one broke across 3. So the membrane on this one is also, unfortunately, dead. So again, I'll pop this to the side. My original is in issue 1A, and this one is in issue 3. Again, we've got ULAs, prone to failing, Z80s tucked away here. But my original board had some sort of fix from the factory. It's interesting, and I don't remember ever being in here, but there is a horrible, horrible solder mess in here. Not quite sure what's going on there. However, we have all of these capacitors to replace. There's also a 7805 on each board, which we will need to look at and replace, one on each, which means we'll need to lift these off. Now on my original, I will be replacing the 7805 with a 7805. However, when it comes to this board, this is not going to be a proper original restoration. I am going to be doing the alternative to the 7805, which is the TracoPower, the TSR 1-2450. So this board, get this, because this board is the one, as I said, I'm looking to do something with, and therefore it's going to get used more. So I'm going to replace this with this little packet, and that will also mean I can get rid of this entire heatsink, because these run much cooler and much more stable than the 7805. I do have, hopefully, a whole bunch of bits and pieces to replace some of these. I hope I've got all the right values to replace them all. Some of what I have is obviously much larger, so I'll need to see if I can actually get them to fit. first things first, let's take out the 7805s and replace them. Well, I'm glad I decided to desolder that, because that's wire. I've got this horrible sneaking suspicion that I decided to try and put a power light on my ZX Spectrum, and that's just some of what I've removed. I mean, there's that one, there's that lump, and it's all wire. So yeah, I'm just going to take a little bit of time and clean out the rest. That's both 7805s now out. Next, I'll do some cleanup on the boards, on the edge connectors. Well, I'm very quickly finding out that Rudolph doesn't want to do the job, and isopropyl alcohol is also not lifting that off. So I'm going to swap over to the fiberglass brush. So there we are, that's the 7805 replaced for light and the 7805 replaced for the TracoPower. Tracks cleaned up as best as I can get them. My original Spectrum, they are pretty bad, so there's not a lot I can do there. Next, let's desolder some caps and do some replacement. I might also see if I can do something with getting these a bit more vertical. I think what's actually happened is they've used 90-degree ones in a very strange way. They've kind of half soldered them through and then bent them by the looks of it. So yeah, let's see what we can do. Might be able to straighten them a bit. Because you start seeing things like this. In fact, that's just off camera. Let me move it up. This is my original here, and yeah, one of the crystals is kind of reclining at a jaunty angle where this one's sitting nicely. Very strange. Not quite sure why. Anyway, let's move on and do some cap replacement. Originally I'd showed a selection of different caps that I was going to use to recap. However, on checking a couple of them, they were a little bit too large, I think would be the polite description. So I had another look, and on eBay I came across the Retro Revival shop. And a gentleman called Mark runs it, and he does refurb kits. So I've got two refurb kits. They're not listed for this particular board, so what caps I can use from here I will, because these are all Vichys, and I'll see what I've got for any that don't match up. It also comes with a ULA heatsink. That's very clever, a nice little add-in and something that's well worthwhile. These are about $12.50 a set. They're not expensive. Again, I'll put a link to his eBay listing, but you can find him here, retrorevivalshop.co.uk. So thank you, Mark. No, it's not sponsored, and by the way, that's how I know it's Mark. He does not know that I was buying it for these videos. It's not sponsored, but it turned up very quickly and seems to contain absolutely everything I need, so excellent. On with the recapping. Okay, I don't know if you noted, I've actually had to take that back off and turn it because I'd actually put it in back to front, and this is exactly the reason you would have seen on the previous board why I keep the markings to the top. That way I can self-check as I go through. So I'll continue now. Now that both boards are done, I'm going to do some basic testing before I actually put any power on. Now, the first test I'm going to do is, this is effectively the negative, the base. So on this one, I'm looking for a value over 100k or possibly open circuit. That's definitely over 100k. So the theory is that should be fine, 7805. Remaining on here for good conductivity, we move down to the first bank of RAM chips. You're starting with, it doesn't matter which one you use, they're all linked in. But top right leg should be the 0 volt rail. So again, you're looking for a value close to 0, absolutely perfect. Lower right is the 5 volt rail, and you're looking for a value over 300 ohms, which we have. Upper left, I'll swap hands. Upper left here, that is your minus 5 volts, and again you're looking for over 300 ohms. Anything less than 300 ohms is bad, basically. And lower left is your 12 volt rail, and this is an issue, this is the 4A board, so you're looking for 2.6 to 2.8k, and that's fine. Now we'll come back and we'll test TR4 and TR5 in a second, just to make sure. Before we do that, I'll move over to this board, we'll do the same checks. The difference being, I can't do any of the checks here based on the 7805, so I'm hoping this will act similar, so at least I can get some readings. So again, any chip, close to 0 as possible, fine. Again, fine. Fine, and that's reading fine. Okay, now we can move on to TR4 and TR5, and for that I'm going to swap over, move away from these, and move over to the leads I made. So for TR4, which is this one here on the issue, the issue 3 board, and the same on the issue 4A board, I'm going on to the center leg. Now I'm going to test either leg, and I'm looking for 0.6 to 0.9 normally. I don't have a diode test function, I don't, oh, my mistake, I do. Of course it's a fluke, of course it's got a diode test function, stupid boy. Right, 0.97, this side. Same, now swap over. And when I swap over, I'm looking for effectively open circuit, which means it's not passing current the other way. Assuming I can clip onto the leg. Because these are rather, this one's rather tight and does not want to play. There we go. Nothing that way. Nothing that way. And now for TR5, we actually do the opposite. So the negative we will start off in the center. This one hopefully is a little bit easier because it's right at the edge. And on either side, a bit high. Same. Do we get open circuit the other way is the question. Okay, with the leads swapped the other way around now, I'm expecting open circuit here, which is what I get. The other side, 1.2 to 1.3 normally, because it's actually reading some of the other components through. So again, both of those look fine. Let's go and check the other board, see what TR4 and TR5 are like. Start with TR5 this time, we'll just do it in reverse, seeing as I've got this clip open. And of course this time TR5 is the one that's awkward to get to, being tucked right low to the board, which makes life very awkward. So I'll swap over and I'll use the test probes here, because this is TR5, TR4. So center positive means on one side I'm expecting open circuit, and on the other I'm expecting 1.2 to 1.3, which is exactly the one I'm getting. If I swap over, I should read standard on both sides. Swapping to TR4, I should get 0.6 to 0.9 normally. And then swapping over, it should be open circuit, which it is one way and the other. That means that both these boards we should be able to power up and be reasonably happy that they should work, assuming nothing else is away. Certainly the voltage side of it, everything looks fine. A couple of things to point out. In the kit from Retro Revival shop, I got a pair of these. These are actually for doing a composite mod. I'm not going to be doing that with this board. I did say at the start I wanted this as an absolutely stock board. So this will be as Sir Clive Sinclair intended, as is. The other thing to note with this board is this has changed since I did the recap, because again, looking back at the videos, I realised I got this back to front, so I lifted it, changed everything round, and now it's resoldered the correct way. So hopefully everything here will be fine. As part of your sort of power up pre-testing, we'll be plugging the power in, and then it's worth checking the voltages and making sure you're getting the right voltages, and do that as quickly as possible, trying not to short two pins, because obviously putting voltage, for example the 12 volt rail, putting that 12 volts through another pin which isn't potentially expecting it can blow other things and cause you great headaches. So from here, let's go and look at the power supplies. This is my original, which, as I said, has some weird, like, sticky, gluey stuff on it, which is coming off, so that's fine, that's going to come off nicely. This one, not so good. It's sticky, it's tacky, it's horrible. I can dig into it, and again, it's kind of coming off. That one's not going to be a fun one to clean. But before I do that, let's get into these and find out what's needing replaced. And typical for one of these, there's 13.74 volts. Now that everything's done, let's go on to testing. Let's find out, are our voltages fine? Only one way to find out. First thing, power on, make sure we get no pops and bangs. None, quick test. 5 volts. 12 volts. Swap hands. And -5, absolutely fine. That's exactly what I was expecting. No real heat, excellent. Moving on to the next board. Okay, I'm getting a buzzing. Normally means something's not right. So I need to do a quick test on some of the rails to make sure everything's fine. 12 volts, -5, 5. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's very loud. It's actually louder over here. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about that just now. Let's power it off. Final step will be popping these into the cases and just seeing what happens, making sure they power up. So let's move from here and have a look at the telly. So here we are ready for testing. All I'm going to be testing is the functionality of the main motherboard. I'm not going to be plugging in the keyboards. That'll be continued in part 2. So let's power on. This is the one that has been buzzing. As I say, I think it's buzzing from here, but that's not an issue for me on this one. So let's plug in and see what happens. And there we have it. We have a working Sinclair ZX Spectrum on channel 36. So I'm going to swap over now and we'll test the other main board. And there we go, my original ZX Spectrum, fully recapped with new 7805, displaying a nice picture. Okay, not as nice as you see it on camera, it is much cleaner, but it's still got a lot of ghosting. However, that's all for this part of the series. So thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next Retro Crazy.